Good evening, everybody.
All right, good evening, everyone. It looks like it is 7:30 on the dot, so we will go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2021 NMAA Baseball Rules Clinic. My name is Dusty Young. I am the Associate Director for the NMAA and also the Director of Baseball. Before we get rolling, just to give you a little bit of feedback on how tonight will work. We'll have several different sections for the Rule Clinic. We'll start with a message from our Executive Director, Sally Marquez. Then I will go into some of the guidelines specific to this unique school year, plus some NMAA baseball bylaws, and then we will turn it over to Jay Cousins, who is our clinician for our NFHS rules. Before that, though, I do want to welcome everyone and again say thank you for everything you guys do for New Mexico high school baseball. It's been a rough 13 months almost now since we've actually had high school baseball here in New Mexico. But I do appreciate all of our coaches and our umpires for staying patient with us and still working hard even during these difficult times so that we can start a successful season come Monday. I told the football coaches about a month and a half ago that I was really excited to jump on a rules clinic because that meant we finally had a season, and I feel the same way again tonight. And I think for those of you that know me, baseball is my passion. So I'm extremely excited to be here to share some of the updates for the upcoming season. We're gonna have baseball games in a week and a half, which is awesome. We haven't been out there on the field in quite some time, and I know you guys are probably anxious. Again, I do want to thank our coaches. I know I've talked to quite a few of you over the last 13 months. I know there's been some frustrations. We've all been frustrated with this whole situation, but we've been working hard to try and get you guys back out there, and we're excited to do just that. So again, thank you for all the feedback, all the insight that you've given us to try and get us back on the field. We're very close, and finally going to have our high school baseball season again. Also to the umpires, thank you. I know we haven't worked games for quite a while, but I know a lot of you have stayed active with online trainings and webinars. So we appreciate you staying connected with your peers and also trying to still better your craft, even though we can't be out there on the field itself. So at this time, I will go ahead and turn it over to our Executive Director, Ms. Sally Marquez.
Good evening, guys. Once again, thank you for being here. And I just want to let you know, and I'm going to keep this very, very short because you guys hear from me on Q&As and at different times. But as Dusty said, it has been a tough year. But I just want to let you know that every step of the way, Dusty has listened and fought for baseball, and it's just refreshing to know that is his passion. And you have somebody, I just want to reiterate, you have somebody in the office that every day thinks about baseball. And so I'm not going to prolong anything. Dusty said it just perfectly. One thing, though, that my now motto is, we're going to play every sport in the 2021 school year. Well, here we are. And now what I'm trying to say is we have a start, and how you respond and how you go through the COVID safe guidelines and the governor's health orders is how we're going to finish. And I know some of you may not agree with some of these rules and regs. There's some things that I don't agree with, but these are the orders handed down from the governor for us to play, and see, we need to make sure that we abide by them, whether we believe them or not believe them, but we need to abide by them in order to get to the finish line. So I'm not going to take much of your time anymore, and Dusty, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Sally. So again, we'll start the clinic off with some information specific to our COVID guidelines for the year, also some important dates and whatnot. We will have questions that come up, obviously. So if you have something like that, you can either type that in the chat box or feel free to raise your hand or speak up throughout the clinic. I would ask that you try and keep your questions to the topics we're going over on the slides. That way we don't have to answer things twice, because I know you might have a question early on that we'll get to later on in the presentation. So try and keep your questions to what we're going over. I believe Nate from our office will be relaying those to me, and then we'll provide you with the best answer. And as we get into this, I do want to remind everyone something we've been saying to coaches and ADs throughout the last couple months. It's been a frustrating year, like we keep saying. It's definitely not ideal, and a lot of the things that we're going to go over today, they're not optimal for the sport of baseball or for any of the sports that we are continuing with this school year. However, these are the rules and regulations that are allowing us to have a season. So please bear with us, keep that in mind. These are the guidelines that have been approved by the state of New Mexico, the governor's office, the PED, and we do have to abide by these in order to keep our high school season going. First off, obviously, just to go over some of the important dates coming up. Monday, April 5th, the first day of official practice. That means we can have our first competitions on Saturday, April 10th. The last day of competition for the regular season will be Saturday, June 19th. And that same evening, we'll actually release the playoff brackets for each classification. We won't start the state playoffs until June 22nd. I know that is a quick turnaround. I've already talked to some of you coaches and your athletic directors about that Monday. We did have it listed in our calendar that we might start on Monday. However, due to, I know, some concerns with pitch counts and those regulations, we're going to hold off and start all of our games on Tuesday, June 22nd. And then we'll continue throughout the week with our finals on Thursday, June 24th for Class A. And then 2A through 5A, your final will be on Friday, June 25th or Saturday, June 26th. Note that this year the Isotopes are actually in town.
Dusty, could you actually share the presentation? I'm getting a little confused.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Could you share the presentation? I'm getting a little confused on what's going on.
Hey, Brandon. Hey, Brandon. The presentation is up. You'll just have to switch your view on the top right corner.
Okay.
All right. There's a view icon in the top right corner, and if all you see is Dusty, that means that you'll need to flip that so that it's the side by side or the presentation view.
Okay, so we're on slide number 3, right?
Correct.
That's gonna help me.
Screen is showing the first slide, not the third slide.
Okay.
What slide are you guys seeing right now?
Yeah, you're just
I'm not
Dusty,
seeing
and
it.
then Dusty, you're on your just your opening slide.
Uh-oh, okay.
So if you go to your slideshow.
Still nothing?
Is it possible to get the link for this presentation or no?
So
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have this available after the fact, yes. So Nate, you're still not seeing my slides here?
No, so go to slideshow. Are you in
Sorry
your
about that, Nate. I'm just getting very confused on what's going on. I'm
No
not
worries.
seeing anything.
All right, Brandon, we'll get you going. All right, so yeah, it's almost like we're frozen a little bit.
Okay, yeah, it's clicking through on my end, so let me try.
Okay, you want to send it to me and I may try?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Can you hear me, Dusty?
Sorry about that. We'll get this going shortly. And Dana, you may need to send that or you may have to do that on your end. I'm just not sure if my Mac will or my laptop. Oh, there you go. That's switching, Dusty. I don't know what you're doing. There you go. Yeah, you're in presenter mode.
Perfect,
You
thank
know
you,
what,
guys.
Dusty?
All right. How about now? Does that work?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see it now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that, guys. It was switching on my end, but not on your end. So the important date slide up, Nate?
yep.
Okay, perfect. How about now? Did it switch?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, awesome. Sorry about that, guys. So again, the Isotopes are actually in town this year. So all of our finals will be played at the University of New Mexico. I'm going into the season format, which I'm sure you guys know already. For the regular season, we do have a 20 game limitation for varsity, 17 game limitation for your sub varsity. And then this year, just because we're starting competition so fast between the first day of practice and then competition starting on the 10th of April, there are no scrimmages allowed. And that's for all sports, not just for baseball. State playoffs for Class A, because of the limited schools that are in Class A, we'll have a 4-team bracket. And then for 2A through 5A, there'll be an 8-team bracket. And again, those playoffs will start after June 19th when brackets are released, and they'll start on that Tuesday following June 19th. And we'll get into that, the exact details for state here in a little bit. But as we get going, we're going to start with our new COVID-19 guidelines that are specific for this year. Before that, there are a couple slides or a couple websites that we'll refer you to for more detailed information. In addition to these COVID safe guidelines specific to baseball, you do of course have the PEDs toolkit that they have passed out to all of our schools that you still have to follow obviously on a day-to-day basis. And then our complete return to participation guidelines are also available on our website. And then lastly, if your school or school district has any specific guidelines outside of those already on those two sites, then you'll have to remember those as well. Once we conclude this baseball clinic, I will send out not only this presentation, but also include those links within that email. That way you can check out those additional documents if you'd like. All right, some of our basic guidelines for this year, and some of this you probably already have heard from your administrators. Physicals for athletes, our 2019-2020 physicals can be used if cleared by a waiver. The only thing that's different from when we first came out with this waiver process is if you have a student athlete that has had COVID-19 since their last physical, then there is an additional clearance form that athlete will have to fill out in order to be able to participate. So just get with your administration on that. There's also some recommendations on return to activity after a student athlete has had COVID-19. Locker rooms, I know this really doesn't impact too many schools when it comes to the visiting team, but just remember to follow those PED guidelines plus ours, which are to sanitize those locker rooms when you're using them. No use of showers, limit the students that are within the locker room, stagger entry and exit, and no congregating. They need to get in, get changed, and get out as quick as possible. And then as always, social distancing and face coverings are required at all times. When it comes to the games itself, so we do have to limit the personnel that will be in the dugout. We've been doing this for all of our sports, whether it's on the football field or the basketball court. For baseball, you will have a maximum of 25 people within the dugout. And note, if the dugout's not big enough to properly social distance for those 25 individuals, you have a couple different options. The first of which, per NFHS rules, you can actually extend the dugout towards the outfield side, and you just have to chalk it off, and obviously that would become a dead ball area. The other option would be to cut the number of individuals that you do allow within the dugout. So if you have a smaller dugout and you don't want to extend it, or you can't extend it, then you'd have to cut that say 20 or 18 individuals. Those folks include your players, your managers, your coaches, your athletic trainers, your statisticians. So anyone that's part of team personnel counts toward that 25. And then obviously in this unique year, please make sure to limit dugout and field access to only team personnel, your umpires if needed, and then essential event staff. I know sometimes media can come into dugouts and take photos and whatnot. That shouldn't happen this year. We're going to try and limit the amount of individuals in each dugout throughout the baseball season. And lastly, as you all know, spectators are allowed based on the county color as designated by the New Mexico Department of Health. As an outdoor event, baseball can have spectators pretty much for most of our, I think all of our counties actually right now. As long as you're in the yellow, green, or turquoise status, spectators are allowed to attend those baseball games. Just as we've been preaching for a number of months, regardless of the situation, all players, coaches, umpires, team personnel, spectators, everyone does have to wear a face covering at all times. Also try and maintain social distancing as much as possible. So obviously when you're playing baseball, there's going to be certain times where kids are close to each other, and obviously that's fine. But what we're saying is if you're at practice or you're at the game and you don't have to be, you're not actively participating, you still want to try and maintain that social distance as much as possible. Again, please try and have hand sanitizer available. We do encourage that, or the washing of hands as much as possible, just for good sanitization throughout the baseball season. This one, I know there'll be some heartache maybe with some of this, but sunflower seeds and gum are not permitted this year. And also spitting is prohibited. Now I've already had coaches call me with questions. How are we going to control kids from spitting? If you see them do it, just remind them that in this unique year, we're trying to stay away from things like that. But we do ask that you please monitor the sunflower seeds and the gum specifically. And now moving into some more of the specifics regarding gameplay for baseball. And again, we have a number of COVID-19 rule modifications. Please know that these came from recommendations that the National Federation of State High School Associations put out. So the National Baseball Rules Committee came up with these recommendations. Most of our states across the country, if not all, are following them. Some are actually adding some things and changing and editing slightly. But what we have used is really from the NFHS and a couple of other states that we typically ask for feedback from. So we've really used the national guidelines plus some other state guidelines to put these together. For the pregame meeting and your lineup exchange, before you start each contest, obviously limit the attendees for that meeting. It should be the head coach and the umpires, head coach of each team and the umpires, or if the head coach can't be there for some reason, you designate one of your assistants. When you're going through that meeting, maintain social distancing. Obviously, when you hand over that lineup card, you're going to get close, but other than that, try and stay your 6 feet apart. Probably the biggest thing that we need to remember for our pregame meetings, and this is for umpires and coaches, we need to ask for verification from the head coach that all participants are legally equipped and will only use legal equipment throughout the contest. And this includes baseballs. And rationale behind that, I mean, it's part of the NFHS rulebook as is, but in this unique year, we really need to make sure of it because of some of our equipment regulations that we will go over here shortly. Lineups handed to the home plate umpire, who he will ask questions. He'll verbally approve the lineup, make sure that everyone's on the same page. And one other recommendation is that hard copies of the lineup, you're not sharing those with your opponent or sharing those with your scorekeepers as you typically would in a normal year. Instead, if you can take a photo of it or send a text with that photo, that way you can share it that way as opposed to actually giving a hard copy. All right, baseballs. And this is kind of going back to what I just said about making sure that coaches are verifying that they're legally equipped. Because of the unique circumstances behind this year, and again, this is a national recommendation, each team will be required to provide their own baseballs while on defense. And the number that you provide is up to you. We do recommend that you have a good supply of those available to keep the game pace going. And since umpires won't be handling the baseballs, we are saying that we recommend you have 12 baseballs available for each contest. That may not be possible all the time. That's just a recommendation. And again, umpires will not be handling baseballs at any time. So your pitcher is going to take a ball out with him. If that ball happens to go out of play, your defensive team, you're going to throw in the next baseball. So those umpires shouldn't have those baseballs at any time. Same thing, the offensive team should never be handling the baseballs for the defensive team. And lastly, after each contest, you should make sure and try and sanitize those baseballs. I know last summer we had a conversation, well, how do you actually do that with a baseball? I know some of you have probably come up with your own ways to do so. One of the manufacturers actually still haven't come out with a set way to do this. However, the recommendation coming from the NFHS is a Clorox wipe. And what they say is to try and make sure that there's no moisture dripping from that Clorox wipe. So squeeze that moisture out and then use the Clorox wipe to sanitize the ball. And that tends not to waterlog the ball or ruin that ball because of the moisture.
Hey, Dusty, so is the umpire at the home plate required to use a ball bag for this since we're not monitoring baseballs?
So since you're not monitoring baseballs, that would not be a requirement. Dana or Nate, I don't know if you have any additional info you'd want to give on that one.
I know this was actually brought up in the softball meeting, and no, it's not required as a ball, but some of the umpires suggested that you keep the ball bag, for other items such as lineup cards, to keep your brush, those types of things.
All right, guys, and so to dive into the baseballs a little bit more, the NFHS does require certain specs for every baseball that's thrown into play at the high school level. And as you guys know, last year this change was in effect. There does have to be the NOXI, SEI stamp or text on the baseball for it to be a legal baseball. So again, I've already had a lot of questions from coaches saying, well, how can we control how can we know what baseball our opponent's throwing in there? How do we know that it's going to be legal if the umpire is not going to inspect it? That goes back to what I said at the plate meeting. You will need to verify that you are using legal equipment. Legal equipment means a baseball that has that NOXI, SEI verbiage on it, plus the NFHS stamp on it. If you're verifying that you're using those baseballs and it comes back that you are not, again, that's a violation of rules. And essentially, that is something that we will look at seriously, and we will issue sanctions from our office if something comes about that you are not using legal baseballs. Also, the NFHS rulebook is very specific that you cannot alter baseballs from the original manufacturer's condition. So again, I've had questions from coaches. Well, we're going to doctor these baseballs up so the balls are mush when the visiting team's hitting. When I'm the home team. Well, again, that's illegal, guys, and that's essentially in really basic form, that's cheating, and that's not something that we of course condone. We're education-based athletics. We expect our coaches to act with integrity and follow the rules of the game. So please just remember, umpires, when you ask that question at the start, they are essentially verifying that they are going to use legal baseballs that are not altered from the original manufacturer's state. And one thing I do also want to pass on with that, the new rule that was put in place by the NFHS with that NOXI stamp, it is a safety rule. It means that all those baseballs have gone through the necessary testing to make it appeased by national standards. So if you are throwing in a baseball that is not up to those national standards, there could be some significant liability that comes back onto the coach and the school. So just please remember that. We preach compete with class, we preach respect, integrity, and personal responsibility. So as we're working through this difficult baseball season, when it comes to equipment, just make sure everything is legal.
So Dusty, there was a question on how will we know if they are illegal?
Guys, it goes back to, I just said it, the coaches have to verify their equipment at the beginning of the game. And coaches, if you're putting in illegal equipment, not only are you putting your student athletes at risk, but you are breaking the rules of the game. And like I mentioned, if we do find out that this is the case, there will be sanctions issued. It could be suspension, it could be forfeiture. We just need to make sure that we get those legal baseballs in there.
And so this
Oh, I
goes
have
back
another
to,
question to ask real quick.
yeah,
So,
hold on, yeah, Brandon, we'll get to you just a second.
okay.
So an on-deck batter no longer gets foul balls between catchers, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And do you have defense throw into catcher so the umpire can verify the legal ball?
If there's ever a question on the legality of a ball, if an umpire feels he needs to see it, we still don't want that umpire handling it. But if the umpire wants to see it, have the catcher hold it out, look at it, and go from there.
All right, and then rubbing dirt on balls.
Rubbing dirt on balls is fine.
Do we treat this use of illegal equipment as we would with an illegal bat? In other words, would a pitcher be DQ'd, coach warned, restricted?
So that'd be up to the umpire and how you want to handle it. It would be it's a violation. There's not a specific penalty for baseballs like there is an illegal bat. However, the crew chief does have the jurisdiction to forfeit a game if they wanted to go that route if you're not following the rules. I would suggest that you warn, you throw that baseball out, possibly restrict the coach to the dugout. That's up to you on how you want to handle it, umpires. But the key is really we just want legal baseballs in there. So I mean, it's happened before, guys, in a non-COVID year where a baseball that's not NFHS approved gets thrown in. We just throw that baseball out and we move forward. If it becomes a trend, if it looks like it's done maliciously, where the team is trying, it keeps throwing in illegal baseballs, then that's something that we can address with those ejections or restrictions, or report it to our office, and then we can take it from there.
Okay, and Dusty, what about worn out baseballs that are unsuitable for play, but that is what the defense coach supplies?
I mean, guys, you use your judgment. If a ball looks like it should be thrown out, throw it out.
All right. And Brandon, we will get to your question, but let's move forward and we'll go ahead and move forward.
All right, some more equipment rules, batting helmets. It is recommended that helmets should not be shared by your athletes. However, obviously, we know some teams do not have an inventory that would allow for every kid to have their own. So I know that this could be tough, but you'll have to have some sort of cleaning supply available. If you are going to share helmets, you need to sanitize that between uses. And it's up to you all as far as if you're using Clorox wipes or if you have a spray of some sort. Just work with your administration to determine what the best situation is for you there. And it would be the same thing with baseball bats. If kids have their own bats, great. If you have to share them, you do have to have some sort of sanitization in between uses. And catcher's equipment would be handled the same way. We do strongly recommend with catcher's equipment that they have their own. If it does become a situation where you have to share within a game, then that definitely needs to be sanitized thoroughly before the next use. And lastly, team personnel shouldn't share, uniforms, towels, water bottles, any other apparel. We are just trying to limit exposure as much as possible and keep from sharing equipment and some of those other items.
All right, a couple of questions. What about fans retrieving foul balls and teams retrieving foul balls on their dugouts, sides, and of the field?
So the defensive team is responsible for their baseballs. So they should be the ones that are tracking those down when they leave the facility.
Okay, and are we allowing pitchers, players to go to the mound legally or mouth legally or to the mouth? Sorry.
We will get there. That's coming up.
And I think we're caught up.
All right, thanks, Nate. Moving on, face coverings. Those are required, as we keep stating. They do have to attach to the back of the head or loop around the ears, and we do not allow gaiters. Also specific to baseball, pitchers cannot wear white, gray, or other face coverings that may be considered as distracting by the umpire. And moving on, and this is just what you asked, Nate. So we're going to go into some coach and player conduct. We have prohibited the licking of fingers, and even if you do wipe them off, pitchers are not allowed to put their hands to their mouths or blow into their hands prior to pitching the ball. If an umpire sees this, you need to call it a no pitch right away. The ball should be called dead. We'll throw that ball out, make sure it's sanitized, and get a new fresh ball in there. With that, I have had that question, well, how are pitchers going to get their grip? This is what they need to do this. If you need to invest in a rosin bag, that's probably the best route to go. We can keep the rosin bag. Each team probably needs to have their own. Bring it out with you just like you do the baseball.
Who will pick up bats after a hit?
What after an at bat? Is that what you said, Nate?
That is correct.
Whoever the on deck batter is, you can grab it by the barrel, throw it back. Again, we're just trying to limit the amount of sharing. If you have sanitizer available or Clorox wipes, then that next person can go ahead and clean it off if you'd like. But again, we're just trying to limit the amount of sharing as much as possible. We'll use common sense, guys. From there, we'll try and get through this year as best we can.
And what if they are wearing batting gloves?
Same thing. You'd still need to sanitize between uses. All right, moving on with coach and player conduct. So players are not permitted to leave the dugout area to congratulate other players when scoring or after home runs. So you need to keep your kids in your dugout area at all times. I know we do have a lot of schools that they'll run out every time there's a home run or when a run is scored even, but you need to keep them in the dugout area as much as possible. When coaches are talking to umpires or scorers about substitutions, just always maintain that social distance. Same thing if you do have a question regarding a ruling on the field by an umpire, need to maintain that 6 feet of social distance. And also base coaches should be maintaining 6 feet of social distance at all times after the suspension of play. For conferences, so defensive conferences should be limited to the coach, the pitcher, the catcher, and no more than 2 other players. When you are having those conferences, social distancing must be maintained. And when a coach is just visiting with the pitcher and the catcher only, then the rest of the infielders, the rest of the team needs to stay as far away from the mound as possible. And also this year, although we of course do promote sportsmanship this year in this unique situation, should be no shaking of hands during the pregame meeting, and also after the conclusion of the contest, the team should not go through a handshake line as well. And those are all of the COVID specific guidelines for this year. We'll get into some of our normal NMAA bylaws now, but if there are any other questions on the COVID stuff, please let me know.
And Brandon, if you'd like to ask your question right now, go ahead.
So basically what I'm getting is about whenever the doctoring the ball thing. So basically what I'm getting at is that whenever the ball is basically like, illegal, and I notice that it's illegal, can I eject that coach or player for when that ball is illegal?
Brandon, I would throw that baseball out.
On my discretion, could I eject that coach though?
I would recommend that you not. I would recommend that you not do that, Brandon. I would throw that baseball out, have a conversation with the coach to ensure that situation doesn't occur again. I know that's similar to the illegal bat situation, so you can treat it like that. If you guys need kind of some guidance for illegal baseballs, you can look at that illegal bat situation. The last thing we want to do, it's going to happen this year, guys, where a ball that is illegal gets into the game accidentally. It's just the nature of the sport. You're going to have a bucket of 12 baseballs, and maybe one of them in there accidentally got in there. It was a BP ball. Shouldn't have been in there, but.
So could I request to look at the ball if I feel like there's a problem with it?
That would be up to you. You still shouldn't hold the baseball. If you need to look at the ball, you should have the catcher hold it for you.
Okay.
All right, Dusty, 20 games is the max. Any kid can play for varsity, JV, C team levels combined. I would imagine you'll cover that.
Yep, that's coming up. That might be one of the next slides, actually. So we'll get to that here in one sec.
And what about the fist bump, not shaking hands?
Guys, that's up to you as coaches on how you handle how your players are interacting. We do ask that you maintain social distancing. So address your programs individually on that.
Hey, Dusty,
Yeah, Pat.
Dusty. Like in volleyball, we do the pregame around the center circle. Maybe we could suggest that we do the pregame around the dirt at the home plate and not step in that area. That would maintain the social distancing.
And that's up to you guys, Pat. From our end, that pregame conference, you just need to maintain that 6 feet of social distancing. So however
But that would be a good way to do it.
want to handle it, that'll be up to you.
Dusty, what happens if a team runs out of balls in the middle of the game, foul balls, combination, cut balls, etc.? Who provides those? Does the game go on?
Guys, bring enough baseball so that doesn't happen.
All right, that's it.
All right, moving on into our NMAA bylaws specific to baseball. First off, our official ball is still the Wilson A1010. That's what we will use for our state tournament. Our official bat that we do promote is the Wilson DeMarini Pro Maple Composite Wood. For our state playoffs, here's some basic information on each of those. For Class A, like I mentioned, we will have a 4-team bracket. There are currently 3 districts. Each district champ will get an automatic bid plus 1 at-large qualifier. For classes 2A through 5A, it is an 8-team bracket. Again, district champs automatically qualify. Then we'll fill the field with at-large teams. For 5A, that's 3 at-large, 4A 2, 3A 4, and then 2A 2 at-large. For our seating and selection criteria, we will be using the same criteria that we use in all years for team sports. It's based on finish in district, head-to-head competition, wins against district champs, overall records, max preps rankings, and then member school input. So that's the coach input form. We will ask for all of our coaches to send that in towards the end of the year. It's basically just ranking your top 8 schools 1 through 8. This year, because of the unique circumstances, it is a single elimination bracket for all of our classifications. So single elimination, we don't have the 2 out of 3 in our bigger schools like we typically do. It's all single elimination. That goes for all rounds, the quarters, the semis, and the finals. For our quarterfinals and our semifinals, those will either be played at the higher seed or at a neutral site. We're dealing with it right now in volleyball, where we've had some matchups from one corner of the state to the other. So in those situations, we will work with your administration to find a neutral site. And then, as I mentioned earlier today, all of our finals will be played in Albuquerque at the University of New Mexico. Bat regulations. We are still a wood bat state here in New Mexico. So only wood or composite wood bats may be used. That's for all levels of high school. Those bats must comply with NFHS rules. If it's a single piece wood bat, it's basically just a sizing issue. Can't be more than 36 inches long and no more than 2 3/4 inch diameter of the barrel. If it's a composite wood, it does have to have the BB Corps stamp on it. It does have to be BB Corps certified. We talked about this a little bit already. Baseballs, they do have to have that NOXI, SEI, and NFHS mark on them. And then also catchers, chest protectors. This was starting last year. They do have to have that NOXI or SEI mark as well. Moving into our pitching regulations, we do have pitch counts here in New Mexico. We've had them for several years now. At the varsity level, it is 120 pitches in any 3-day period. And we'll get into the rest requirements here in a second, but the maximum is 120 pitches in any 3-day period. That could be in 1 day, it could be in 2 days, could be over or that 3rd day. For sub-varsity, it's 105 pitches. If you have a pitcher that starts an at-bat at 119, they can go past 120. So as long as they just finish that at bat, but as soon as the at bat's over, they do have to come out as pitcher. Here's a big thing that we need to talk about every year. Pitch counts have to be reported on Max Preps within 24 hours of the completion of your game. And we've had some issues with the posting of this information in the past. We are going to be a lot more strict with that this year. The first offense, you'll get a warning from our office. If it happens a second time, we will issue a suspension for a game. We need to do better at getting that information posted to Max Preps. This is a safety rule. We are trying to take care of our student athletes out there. And one thing I will add to that, I run a weekly report on pitch counts. I get a ton of calls from coaches saying, well, I'm looking at School X's information and they don't have their pitch counts on there. I'm aware of those situations because we do run those reports. We take care of that stuff internally. Here's what I would encourage you to do. If you see a coach that doesn't have their pitch count and you're wondering why they don't have it because you're playing them on Thursday and you want to know who you might be facing, pick up the phone and call them and tell your colleague, hey, your pitch count's not in. We're trying to look to see who we might face. We'll work together, guys, especially in this unique year. We're at the end of the day, we're all on the same team. We're all working for the kids in New Mexico, and we're all professionals. So I'm sure I would expect that coach to answer the phone and say, oh yeah, I'll get that posted right away. But in the meantime, I had number 24, he threw 97 pitches, and number 26 through 14. All right, guys, so let's be let's be courteous of each other and be professional and get that stuff taken care of. And into our rest period requirements, they are the same that we've had the last few years. If a pitcher throws 0 to 40 pitches, they don't have to have a day of rest. 41 to 60 is 1 day of rest. 61 to 90 is 3, and then 91 plus is 4. And a calendar day means if you throw 85 pitches on, say, a Tuesday, they would need 3 days of rest. They couldn't throw again until Saturday. So that would be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are their days of rest. We do have a consecutive day note. So if you have a player that pitches on consecutive days and accumulates more than 60 pitches during those 2 days, that cumulative pitch count must be used to calculate the required rest period. And then also if they throw on 2 consecutive days and they're eligible to pitch that third day, the most pitches that they can throw on day 3 is 60. And same rules, with that 60, they could finish a batter if they started at, say, 59. But yeah, just remember that anytime you pitch on consecutive days, you have to add those pitch counts up. And if you add 29 and 33 together, that's going to put you over that 60 limit, and that'll tell you how many days rest you need after the second day of pitching. And I know there's a lot of information within the pitch count regulations that I just went over. And we may have I know we have some new coaches on here right now. I encourage you to review the full set of regulations that we have on our website. I'll include those links in the email I send to you after this clinic, so you can check those out. There is a Q&A section on page 2 of those regulations that'll go over certain situations. And here's to game limitations. I know we had a question on this. So you're limited to 20 total games at the varsity level, 17 at the sub-varsity level. If you have a student that is floating between, say, JV and varsity, they can play a maximum of 20 games. So if they play 15 games at the varsity level, they'd have 5 games at the JV level, or vice versa. Okay, so it's not, you can't add games on top of the 20. If you're floating, 20 is the maximum. The only exceptions we really have to that rule, first off, if you have a kid on JV that comes up to varsity and they only participate as a courtesy runner, that wouldn't count as participation in the game. If they pinch ran, that would enter them into the game and it would count, but if they're a courtesy runner only, that will not count. Also, we have an innings of play guideline exception. That is, if a school plays 2 games at different levels back-to-back on the same day at the same site and against the same school, you can have a student that participates in 10 innings between the varsity game and the sub-varsity game, and it would only count as 1. So it wouldn't count as 2. It would only count as 1 if you stand at that 10-inning limit for 2 games played on the same day.
Hey, Dusty, there is a private message. Sub-varsity limit to 23 games or 17 games. Slide says both.
I'm not sure where it says 23. I apologize if it does. It's 17 for, oh, I'm sorry. Right there, yeah. So it's actually 17. I apologize. That's a typo on my end. It's 20 for varsity and 17 for sub-varsity. And lastly, before we move on to the rules portion that Jay Cousins will present, just a reminder of our Compete with Class Sportsmanship Initiative. We're finally starting games, and we're excited about that. And I think we need to remember we've been waiting a long time, and we want to get out there. And I know we're all passionate for our kids, but you know, one thing that happened as soon as we started fall sports, we were already getting ejection reports and negative incidents. And I don't think we were ready for that. I think we were so excited just to start athletics again that we forgot that sometimes we do have that bad sportsmanship that comes out from time to time. So we ask you guys as coaches, just try and do the best you can to pass on our values of respect, integrity, and responsibility. And hopefully we can get through the baseball season with limited negative incidents. I know 2 years ago, we actually had a spike when it came to coach ejections, and that's something that hopefully we can lower this year, and really just go back to education-based athletics and remembering why we're out there. It's for those kids, and it's not about a blue trophy, and it's not about winning and losing. It's just providing an experience for those kids that have really yearned for it over the last 13 months. And that kind of leads into the last thing of bench decorum. We did receive a heavy increase in negative reports just regarding the chatter that's coming out of our dugouts from student athletes at various games across the state. And that's something that I know I don't really remember that happening when I was playing. Granted, that was a long time ago, but hopefully we can clean that up. And yeah, we want our kids cheering from the dugout, but we want them cheering on our teammates, not chirping at the other team and saying things that are inappropriate towards your opponent or the officials. So I would just ask that you guys help us get through this year. It's been a rough one, but let's do things the right way and remember to always compete with class.
Dusty, is there an
Hey, Dusty,
expansion?
so
Hey,
have a
hold
question real
up,
quick.
Brandon. Hold up, Brandon. Is there an expansion of the roster this year?
There's 25 people allowed in the dugouts. Your roster is up to you all for regular season. Once we get to the state tournament, that roster is limited to 18.
All right, Brandon, go ahead.
So I noticed that when I was watching the Lobos the other day, I heard there's actually a rule for coaches that you have to stay outside the playing box when you're arguing or appealing a call for the umpire. Does that apply for this association? When the coach gets in the umpire's face, is that an automatic? I heard when Birmingham yelled at the umpire in his face, I guess he got a 6-game suspension or something.
Hey,
So I'm just
Dusty, I got this one. Brandon, that is an NCAA game, and just like basketball, because we know you referee basketball, we follow
Yeah.
NFHS rules, and we'll work around that.
okay.
And on that note, we did cover it in the coach conduct section. If you do come out to question and call, you should still maintain that social distancing. For our umpires, if you have a coach that's getting close, just remind them that they need to stay away during that conversation and keep as much space in between the two individuals.
Hey, Dusty.
Yes.
Hi, John Quick here. Thanks for doing what you're doing. Appreciate it. I'm getting some private messages on my thing here regarding the foul balls. What if the defensive team is delaying the game because they're out of foul balls, whatever the case might be? Is there something that the umpires can do to enforce the speed up of getting balls back in play?
Just to encourage those coaches to get their whoever's on their bench, their reserves, to go out and get those foul balls as quick as possible. This is it's going to be an interesting year trying to navigate through this unique season. So yeah, just work with the coaches, try and encourage them to have as many baseballs available in the dugout as possible. And if it has to delay the game a little bit, that's fine, guys. We're in a situation where it's not a normal year, and we'll work through it as best we can.
All right, and Dusty, are pitchers going to be allowed to wear wristbands on their glove arms to receive signs? The college levels changed the rule to combat sign stealing.
That is not changed at the high school level.
And can balls be marked between teams?
Can they be marked if you do you want to put your team name on them? I mean, as long as you're not, making the ball black or really changing the look of the baseball. If you want to put a small mark on there to note that it's your team's ball, that's fine.
I have a question, Dusty, if you don't mind. My name is
Sure.
Johnny Montenegro. I coach for Colbury High School, and we are a very small district. And I know that you were saying that it's a 23 games or 20 games for the varsity and 17 for the lower level. But we have to mix quite a bit of our teams to make that count. So how does that work for the lower level teams like us here in Colbury and maybe like Tier C and so on and so forth? Or is there no exception to that rule where it's like we're not like a 4A, 5A school where we have that we have that plethora of students?
There are no exceptions to the rule, and that's the same for all sports. There is a varsity limitation and a sub-varsity limitation, regardless of school size. Those are the limitations you have to follow.
Thank you.
Any others, Nate?
Hey, Dusty, this is Coach Sandoval, Silver City. Sorry, I was joined a little late there at practice, but are they? I was told that with the seniors, some seniors are coming out to play for the first time, being that this is their last year. That the rule was that seniors couldn't play JV. Are they allowed to play JV this year, just to get some playing time?
So that's a school district decision. The only rule that we have that says senior can't play JV is if they're a transfer student. So if they're coming from another school as their as a senior. So as far as seniors playing JV, otherwise that's up to the school district.
Okay.
And there are no more questions in the chat.
All right,
I have
guys.
a question. This is Joe Reese from Southwest. Are teams able to scrimmage before they start the season?
No, they're not this year. We're not allowing scrimmages in any sport.
Okay, because I've heard from a source that somebody was asking for an umpire to do some scrimmaging games, and I was just wanting to elaborate on that. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. They can inter squad if they're working at, they can inter squad themselves, but no, not a scrimmage against another school.
Okay, well, if they're doing an inter squad and they're asking for an umpire, are we able to help?
So no, I believe Dana or Nate, please help me out with that one, but I believe we've been saying no to those.
And that is
That
correct.
That is correct, Dusty. It is no.
So on that note, how about, there's a bunch of traveling teams out there that are playing, and they're not a school team. Can they scrimmage? Can we scrimmage a traveling team?
No, you would not be able to. You're only allowed to participate against NMAA member schools.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Jay Cousins. He is one of our umpires. He's a frequent clinician and evaluator. And I don't know if I should say this, but he called baseball games even when I was playing. So he's been around a little bit, so he knows a lot about the sport of baseball.
All right, Dusty, I'm getting Jay switched around here. And what you didn't say is Jay was only 8 when he was calling your games. So there's that. But I'm going to go ahead and switch seats with him so he can get rocking and rolling. And I'll turn it over to Jay at this time. So your mic is live. You'll just use this, Jay.
Oh, do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just checking the audio here real quick, if I could. Is anybody not hearing me? Everybody's okay? All right. Well, hey, we're going to get going. So, hey, so the rule changes for 2020 are the same for 2021. So, I mean, they're the same ones. We all probably had a few meetings back in 2020 before the season got got knocked out in early March. So so a lot of you are familiar with some of the new rules, but the player DH is obviously the new one, and it's it's fairly straightforward. But so we'll just start from there. I mean, Dusty's right. I mean, it's a very unique year for all of us. I was thinking about umpires not handling any baseballs. I mean, and not wearing ball bags. I mean, for me, I must wear a ball bag, even if I've got no baseballs in there. I'm just going to have to do it. And so it kind of was a little bit shocking that we were not going to be able to handle the baseballs, but I do understand because of the COVID thing. So not a problem there. That's going to take some learning on the umpire's part, that's for sure, because that's a habit for all of us. But anyway, so hey, we're going to go through the rule changes for 2021, and let's see if we can get this going here real quick.
Click on the mouse.
Oh, okay. And let's see.
Just kind of click off screen.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right, let me get myself off here. Okay. Okay, so on this designated hitter, Rule 3-1-4, look it up in the rule book, be familiar with it. The traditional DH is, obviously still in effect, but we're going to be talking about this player DH, not to be confused with a PDH in NCAA. It's nothing like it. Okay, so just keep in mind it's player DH, not PDH. Okay, so, but yeah, so it's going to be a new rule. It's the reason for it is it's going to contribute to offense. I mean, there's going to be very few, with this player DH, there's going to be very few, 2-1, 3-2, 4-3 games. It's going to contribute to offense and provide a little bit more excitement for the game of baseball, and get more kids off the bench and play. And so that's the main thing. This rule allows the starting DH to also be a starting defensive player. So that's always a good thing. And with the pitch count restrictions Dusty was talking about earlier, it's going to allow the pitcher who is removed from the game, if he's a pitcher DH, to continue to hit and not pitch if he reaches those pitching restrictions. So, and umpires, you got to be familiar with the substitution. Be very familiar with the substitution rule on this player DH thing. All right, and just read that rule book, read everything that's gray shaded in that 2020 rule book, and you'll be fine. And obviously our meetings will be an opportunity to ask some questions there. We'll always be just making sure that you're clear on this player DH.
Okay.
So let's see here. Okay. So, and we're going to kind of blaze through this. Tom Litchfield and I did a massive webinar about a month ago here at NMAA about the player DH. We spent probably at least an hour and a half on it. So there will be a link to that webinar. So I'm not going to be able to take a whole lot of questions on this player DH tonight. It's getting kind of late. So, so if you want a link to that, I know the umpires have the link. Coaches, managers, if you want that link, that could be made available to you as well. And so we talk about everything player DH related. And it could be a little bit complicated in some areas, but for the most part, it's going to be fairly straightforward. But there's also some really basic concepts that before we go any further that I would like to get out to all the umpires and coaches right now is number one, players may be listed as both the fielder and the DH. Okay, that's a little bit of a change from that traditional DH. Number two, the player can be subbed for defensively and still be the DH. Okay, so remember that. And number three, once the DH is subbed for on offense, the DH is done. And only one player can occupy that spot in the batting order. Okay. Number four, if the pitcher or catcher are listed as a PDH or a CDH, they cannot have a courtesy runner. And then the number 5, the player listed in the starting lineup as the fielder DH may come out of the game in either role and re-enter once. Okay, so those are some sort of basic concepts on this new player DH. Just wanted to get that out there for you real quick. And okay, sounds good. So Dan just told me the link is in the chat area. So I know umpires all have this link to the webinar, the Player DH webinar. But if you coaches and managers would like to take a look at that, I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with it. You've read it. You probably know it. I know some of you know it extremely well. But there is a link in there, so you can take a look. Okay. So, like I said, I've already kind of discussed some of these statements that are coming at you on these slides. So we're just going to kind of roll through some of these and sort of go over them briefly. So the starting DH may now be any one of the starting defensive players. We all know that, including the pitcher. A player DH then holds 2 positions: the defensive player and designated hitter. So that's a basic concept of this player DH rule that's new for 2020 and new for this year. So I'm just going to let you guys read these things. We're gonna clarify a few things a little bit later, but I mean, the rule changes for 2021 are almost exclusively about the player DH, and so it's just real important to understand it. It's real important to be real kind of flexible for this year on that. Yeah, I did, I think, 6 games last year before the season got killed, and I don't think any skipper used the player DH. I don't think they used it once. I don't know if they're intimidated because they were confused. I just don't know. Or, but I know as an umpire, I was thanking them profusely for not doing it. But that's just me. But but let's be flexible. If there's some confusion, umpires, get with your partners. Work it out, deal with it. You've all got the cheat sheets for the player DH. Everybody's got one, so refer to it. And if it takes 5 minutes to sort it out, then that's what it takes. So it's new. It's somewhat complicated, but pretty basic. Straightforward. Okay? So once again, you guys can kind of read this. I've discussed it a little bit. When using the PDH, the rule of the DH is terminated for the remainder of the game when any player substitutes offensively for the DH. That's a really important concept to remember as umpires. And once again, that's just a kind of reminder right there. They're going over this over and over again, and so they just want umpires and managers to be real clear on this thing, and how to use it and how to use it to your advantage, and and keeping in mind the intent of the rule, which is to get kids in the game, and it's to especially the pitcher who's the DH, he can still bat when he's taken off the mound. So that's a good thing, because generally, come out in high school. Pitchers are damn good hitters, so it gives them an opportunity to stay in the hitting role and not pitch if they've reached their pitching restriction. This just goes over Rule 3-1-4, and it's in the rule book. You can see there's some wording that's been struck on this. It's I don't believe that's in the rule book that way, so. The rule book, I think, is pretty specific. It's all shaded in gray. So go to the rule book and check that out. There's a couple of paragraphs worth of information there, and there's also some great casebook scenarios that you can also look up. So recall that this player DH has to be declared before the game with the lineups. If they do not declare it, they cannot use it. In other words, if we start a game, we get in the first inning, skipper comes out and says, "Hey, I'd like to use the player DH." we just can't allow that to happen. It's just, it has to be done prior to the game. So just keep that in mind. They're going to submit you either a straight 9, they're going to submit a traditional DH or that player DH, but it has to be done before the game. They cannot add it afterward. They just can't do it. If they fail to declare it before the game, it's a straight 9. It's as simple as that. So, and another a couple of key activities on lineup card management is, guys, you got to keep it simple. Umpires, keep it simple out there, and keep it real easy to translate. And that would be critical in a suspended game or a resumed at a later date type of game. Okay, so it's real important that you are very specific about how you made those changes, so that that game has to get picked up at another time. The umpire crew can can pick that up and read it and translate it and move on with that game. So like I said, let me just reiterate, always confirm at the plate meeting whether the DH is being used and the type of DH, because there's two types now, so keep that in mind. And also, managers fill out lineup cards differently. With the traditional DH, make sure it's clear for whom the DH is hitting. All right, so just make sure these things, in that pregame meeting. And then when a player DH assumes the DH only role, circle the DH, or some other indication on the lineup card that this transition has occurred. And by the way, we had some great lineup examples that Tom Litchfield put together in the webinar. So there's a bunch of examples in there about how to work a lineup and how to strike players and circle things, and just make it easy for yourself to understand exactly what's going on out there. And umpires, you got to know who has re-entry rights. That'll have a huge impact on allowable subs. So make sure you know exactly who has those re-entry rights. And if you're confused, get with your partner. Get the cheat sheet out and look at it. And there's the cheat sheet has almost every scenario on there that you could ever imagine. So there'd be no excuse for not getting it right. And you've seen they've struck out a lot of these words, and I don't think the rule book has these words in there anymore. So it's really quite specific. You're going to your rule book and you'll see that it's all shaded in gray. It's real specific and pretty straightforward actually. And especially go into the case book and read the player DH scenarios and some of the things, because there's some great questions and answers, as well as some great questions and answers on that webinar that we did a month ago.
Hey Jay, can I add something?
Oh, sure.
So I don't think all of our coaches have that cheat sheet. So if you are interested in that, shoot me an email and I can point you in the right direction.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I think it would be a great idea for them to have it as well. I mean, I know all the umpires have it, and we're going to be requiring that they have it in their top pocket, back pocket, front pocket, whatever. Just have it available as a plate guy or even as a base guy. I mean, hey, both of you carry it if you want to. It's fine. It's got every scenario that we could possibly have come up with to help you out and help get through it. And so, like I said, if it takes a couple minutes to sort it out, then take the few minutes to do it and make sure it's right. And hey, if you're stumbling over something, coaches, I would say be flexible with the umpires, especially our new guys. Our new guys are struggling enough with a massive rule book that's it's quite complicated at times. But so I would just say let's be flexible. Yeah, and just realize we're educators out there. I mean, even as umpires, we're educators, and so let's just be real flexible with each other out there when we're trying to get through these things.
Hey Jay, so
yeah.
I just want to know about the DH thing. So like during the first inning, is that when we look at their list and we look at all their 9 batters, if they have a DH in the first inning, if they don't want to use their DH, what do we do about that?
Well, so okay, so have they declared that they're going to be using the traditional DH, or have they declared they're using the player DH? So
like, what do you mean by that? So I understand.
Well, okay. So what I'm saying is is the skippers have to tell us that they're using a DH, or it's either going to be a straight 9, it's going to be a traditional DH, which we've been using for years, or it's going to be this new player DH. Okay, has to be declared prior to the game. So
Okay.
So in other words, if it's not declared, they can't use it. They just go to a straight 9 and we move on.
Okay, so what, like, like the second inning, and then they say let's say the Sandia coach wants to bring in a DH, we can't do that, right?
No, we cannot.
Okay.
No, we cannot, especially if he has not declared that at the beginning of the game.
Like at the plate meeting, right?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly what needs to happen right there. So when you're having your pregame meeting, make sure that you check it out. Ask the skipper, hey, what kind of are you using, a traditional DH? You'll be able to see on the lineup, but I mean, just ask them, are you using a DH today? And go from there. And if they are, then just make your notation, especially on that player DH side, make your notation about who's occupying 2 positions there.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so these are pretty important concepts right here on Rule 3-1-4, number 1 and 2. The defensive player, any previous defensive player for whom the designated hitter batted, subsequently bats, pinch hits, or pinch runs for the designated hitter, or the designated hitter or any previous designated hitter assumes a defensive position. Okay, so here's the rationale. I mean, I did go over this at the beginning, but here's the rationale for this thing. It's really quite simple about the intent of the rule. It's provide coaches with some options to strategize how to keep their better players in the game, and to contribute to the offensive output, and give another player a chance to participate on defense. And then we talked about the pitch count rules for the pitchers who are going to be the DH. So if you're a PDH, that means you're a pitcher DH. And so you reach a pitch count, you've got to, you don't have to come out of the game. You can still bat, but a new pitcher is going to take your place, but you're going to still bat. So make sure that when that happens, you got to make a notation. You got to jump on that right now, and don't be confused about that, and keep it simple out there. Okay, so the NFHS always has points of emphasis every year. Sometimes they're very similar year after year, but these points of emphasis are kind of repeats. And usually points of emphasis are areas where we've had some issues around the country in interpretation of rules. Okay, so they want us to, so points of emphasis basically is saying, hey, we have this continuing chronic issue going on with some of the interpretations of the rules. So here we go again with designated hitter. All right, so this is a huge point of emphasis. And so we're not going to spend a lot of time on this slide because we've already discussed it. Okay, so here's where it says it reminds us all that the courtesy runner can never have any function with a DH. So when a DH comes to bat, he's a DH regardless of either lineup option. So when at bat, he can never assume a defensive position. As a result, a courtesy runner is never a legal sub for a DH, even if they're the pitcher or the catcher and involved in that player DH situation. So keep in mind, no courtesy runners now for the DH if they're the PDH or the CDH. And this is all kind of a repeat right here. I'll let you all read it, try to absorb it. It's kind of repetitive, but like I said, they not only included it in the rule changes, but also in the points of emphasis. So they really want you to get on this. And umpires, I can't emphasize more to go ahead and read all the way through it, read the casebook definitions, the casebook scenarios involving the player DH, because they're basic, but they're good. And they try to include ones that would be typically, that you would typically deal with during the game. Okay, so game ending procedures. The NMAA does have game ending procedures, so we don't have to worry about that. And those game ending procedures are right. I think it's at the end of the rule book, or they might be at the beginning. I think they're at the end on the game enders. So the NMAA does have game enders, and so we don't have to worry about making these things, making any decision on our part about some kind of a game ending situation. Like, for instance, I don't know, I think 20 years ago, I remember an umpire was saying something about, oh, let's only play 3 innings and can we, I forget how it went, but they tried to manipulate the rule in a big way to make the game, only last like 45 minutes. So that's not good. So, but be familiar with the game ending procedures that the NMAA has adopted. And so they're all in there. And so there shouldn't be any questions here, but they just want you to be super familiar with the fact that we do have them and that you cannot get creative on your game ending procedures as umpires. Okay, so the forced play slide rule, this one's being confused all over the place, all across the country. Umpires are not super familiar with the difference between a forced play slide rule and a regular slide. So you got to know that there is a major definition in the rule book about a slide. It's under Rule 2-32-1 and 2. And it says specifically, if a runner slides, he must slide within reach of the base with either a hand or foot. Okay, that's in a non-force situation. Okay, remember that. So we got umpires that are implementing the force play slide rule all over the place, regardless if it's a force or not. So just be familiar with the fact that the definition of a slide says he can be within reach of the base with either a hand or a foot in a normal slide situation. But in a force play slide situation, it's different. So they're never required to slide, but if a runner elects to slide any base, it's got to be legal. Legal slide can be either feet first or head first. If a runner slides feet first, at least one leg and butt cheek shall be on, buttock shall be on the ground. So, and you have to slide within a direct line between the bases in a force play slide situation. So we're getting confused all over the country on that. That's why they added this to the points of emphasis for 2020. There's a great case book scenario on page 84 of the case book. I think everyone needs to read it. It's 8-4-2 is the rule situation O and P on page 84. So read that. It's got some really good stuff on there. So, and then the force play slide rule is on also on page 53 and 54 of the rule book. So just know the difference between a force play slide rule and a regular slide. Okay, he can be within reach of the hand or foot on a regular slide. On a force play, it's going to be different. It's going to be, you got to slide in a direct line between the bases. Okay, and so here's some of the reminders in the rule book about illegal slides. Runners can't pop up into the fielder. That's going to be illegal. Got to deal with that right away. You cannot slide with your leg raised higher than the fielder's knee. There's obvious reasons for that. We're wearing metal cleats out there. You're going to tear flesh.
Okay, how do we enforce that?
Well, Brandon, you just got to know, how to deal with an interference situation. Okay, and so
you just kill it and say that's interference. Runners out.
Well, yeah, and then you're also going to get the better runner as well on that.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, you got 2 outs on that one. Okay, so but like I said, this one is an injury thing. It is to avoid those metal cleats tearing up people's knees. So you see a slide higher than the knee like that, you can go ahead and kill that and call it interference.
So yeah,
All right,
when somebody does that, when somebody does that, that's an automatic out anyway. You just point. I could say, "Hey, that's illegal." Runners out, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
and then you're gonna.
We see that a lot in the college and MLB a lot all the time, and like, hey, that's an automatic out anyway because those guys don't want to try to get hit by the baseball, so that's why. I mean, we see it all the time. So
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, it's a safety thing too. I mean, NFHS is all about safety, all about keeping the players playing. We don't want to be torn flesh out there. We don't want to have people taking stitches out there and not playing, for a week or two. So it's just all about safety out there. It's how NFHS differs from from MLB. NCAA is real big on safety too. So they're real similar to high school actually on a lot of what they do out there as far as safety goes. So I'll keep that in mind. So let's see, what's our next one here? Okay, so except at home, runners may not slide through or beyond the base. All right, so we're getting some confusion there. It's like there's some umpires all over the country who are ringing up interference simply because the runner slid beyond the base, made no contact, made no interference, didn't interfere with the pattern of the play, but is still being called out for interference. So, hey, guys, let them slide through the base. As long as there's no contact, as long as there's no interfering with the pattern of the play, let that go. At Valley High School, when it's wet, I mean, I've seen people slide, 40 feet past second base, and it's fine. It's not a problem. But if you make contact when you do it, now it becomes interference. So keep that in mind. So you can slide 40 feet past the base at second base, especially if the turf is wet. And if you make no contact, forget about it. Leave it alone. It's nothing. Okay. But if he makes contact, obviously that's going to be interference.
Jay, I have a question about the home play one. What if the catcher is in front of the home plate and there's a play at home? And, if we stand on the left or the right side, that's not interference, is it?
Well, I mean, it would depend. I mean, if you mentioned the catcher's in front of the plate, he better have the ball if that's happening.
Okay.
So if he's got the ball, he can do what he needs to do to make that tag on that runner.
Right.
If he does not have the ball and he's blocking the plate, we could very well have a violation.
And that runner will be safe, correct?
In that, let's see. So we're talking about the catcher with the ball who then blocks the plate.
Yes.
No, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Go ahead. So say the catcher's on the line and then in front of the plate, but he doesn't have the ball, and the runner is trying to come in. It doesn't have the ball. Is that still interference?
That would tend to be sort of an obstruction situation. So
right.
Yeah, you're gonna be ruling that differently. But just keep in mind the catcher does have to have the baseball, in his glove. If he's going to be blocking that plate, so you just gotta watch for that. I mean, start at the point of the plate, drop back 5 feet. You got to check that out. There's a lot of things you got to look for when players rolling around third and coming into home. So you just gotta make sure that there's no obstruction or interference on that.
Sounds good.
So just watch it real close. Okay,
real quick here. Also, say if he doesn't have the ball, then the runner is safe, right? So and if he's actually blocking the plate with no ball in his hand, that runner is safe, and that catcher has a violation now, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right, because he's blocking the plate without the ball.
Okay.
And if he forces that runner to go around him when he doesn't have the ball and he doesn't touch the plate, and then the catcher gets it and tags him, guess what? He's going to be safe.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I like that one better because I like that too, because the runner does have to go around him, and then if the catcher does tag him, I'm like, no, he is safe because you were in the restriction area because you didn't have the ball. Is that correct?
Yeah. Keep that simple. Just say, hey, that's obstruction. Point at it, say that's obstruction.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Okay, so the next one we're still talking about the forced play slide rule. So runners may not slide away from a base in the direction of the fielder, but if a runner may slide in a direction away from a field, let me redo that. But a runner may slide in a direction away from a fielder to avoid making contact or altering the play of the fielder. Okay, so they're just talking about the forced play slide rule, and they're really kind of like, you know, talking about this direct line between the bases. Okay, so you just got to make sure that you do that, and then you'll be good to go. But you got to watch that closely as a base umpire too, and rule on it accordingly. So the next one is the runner's out when he illegally slides. Obviously, on a forced play, the runner's also guilty of interference. Batter runner is also declared out, and all other runners have to return to the base occupied at the time of the pitch. Okay, so keep that in mind. On a violation like that, you're going to get 2 outs on a forced play slide rule. Okay, so out at second, out at first. Okay. Okay, we're going to move into the compliant baseball. You know, Dusty talked about this quite a bit before. The only thing I was kind of curious about, if Dusty's still listening, is, you know, umpires, I mean, we've been doing it for years. We rub up baseballs. We do it for a couple of reasons. We do it so the pitcher can grab a better, you know, have a better grip, throw more strikes, be a little bit more accurate for us, not throw so many 55-footers that bounce up and catch us in the cup. Okay, so I was just kind of curious on rubbing up baseballs, Dusty. Are we going to be able to do that, or is that? It sounds like it's not going to be possible.
No, that's not possible this year, Jay. The coaches should be rubbing those up for their athletes.
Okay, sounds good. So we're going to just rely on the coaches to do that for us.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Yeah, no problem. I was just kind of curious because that's like an automatic thing we do when we get to a game is grab these white pearls and you know, get that shine off them so the pitcher can grab it easier, and so, you know, so the ball doesn't come off the bat so true and smoke us in the kill zone, right in the grill. So okay, so umpires, be aware, we're not going to be able to rub up baseballs. I was also going to suggest, hey, if you do have a problem with a baseball, Dusty made a great suggestion about having the catcher, maybe having the coach throw it to the catcher, maybe take a look at it. Do not touch it, but take a look at it just briefly. Make sure it's got the, you know, if you want to, you know, look for the Noxie mark, you know, that'd be fine. And hey, and like I said, if it doesn't have that Noxie mark on it, we're going to continue the game. We're not going to just kill the game because we don't have the Noxie baseball, but we are going to put a report together in a big way, and we're going to do it within 24 hours, and we're going to let the NMAA know that, hey, we had a couple balls that were not Noxie stamped. And then the NMAA will do their due diligence and, you know, talk to the school, talk to the AD or whatever, and just, you know, find out why it's going on and you know, provide a solution. So they're real good about that. So yeah, like I said, we don't have to talk about that much anymore, but it is new for 2020. It's got to have that new stamp on the baseball. And this just kind of reiterates exactly, you know, what's going on with that. And it's the rationales to maintain a consistent uniform standard for high school baseball competition. I mean, how many times have umpires seen, you know, diamond baseballs slip into the mix, you know, and we go ahead and play with them, but they're different. They have different seams on them and stuff like that. So we're just trying to, you know, maintain a consistent equipment out there, so it's fair across the board. So remember, umpires, you see that, make a note of it, report it to the NMAA on an incident report, and then they'll deal with it. And they usually deal with it very quickly. Okay, so once again, Dusty did mention the fact that at the pregame, you're going to absolutely require that skipper to tell you that everything is, all the players are legally equipped. Okay, and this includes this particular situation. So what is happening, and it's very rare, but there is a medical term called commotio cordis, and it's Latin for a lethal disruption of the heart. Okay, and so we're seeing some young players, typically right around the age of 15. They're usually men, or boys, I should say. Young men, age 15, usually in sports, in hockey especially. You know, people are taking these these 80-mile-an-hour, hockey pucks to the sternum area, and we've had some deaths. And so because we've had these deaths, we are going to get these new these NOxy standard catchers, protectors to that allegedly include some more high impact plastic in there to deaden the impact of the baseball. So keep in mind, we've had some deaths here with this commotio cordis, and that's why this new equipment is being integrated and required for 2021. So I did kind of scrape up some stats from like 96 to 2007. The United States National Commotio Cordis Registry had 188 cases recorded. 96% of victims were male, age 14.7, and fewer than 1 in 5 survived the incident. So 2 to 3 deaths per year in baseball because of this. So, and the highest incidence is in baseball, softball, hockey, and believe it or not, football. So that's we're trying to sort of deaden the blow for these young these 15-year-olds who take this blow to the heart, and it simply stops the heart, and they go down and they die. So, and that NOxy stamp is going to be, I mean, they claim in the photo that it's going to be up on the upper left hand shoulder area. It could be on that strap, but I'm not sure about that. But I know that it has to be there, and it's got to be there because, like I said, the new equipment is going to have a higher impact plastic up under that padding, and to allegedly soften that blow during a impact situation with a baseball to the heart.
Jay, just wanted to add on to the umpires. I actually got a protector myself from a guy named Dave Kraut. And honestly, you want to have that protector around your chest area really secure, because you take that blow to the heart, you're going to drop quick.
Yeah, and Brandon, it usually doesn't happen with adults, but like I said, all the stats and all the medical data indicate that the kids are 15 or less who are dying from this. So it's not so much on the adult side, and the reason for that is because a 15-year-old has not quite developed the bone structure yet. They're still growing. Males typically stop growing at about 19 or so.
But
So
it's a safety issue, though. So.
No, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, a good chest protector and strapping it on securely is obviously.
But I would suggest the umpires get a plastic chest protector, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be up to the particular umpire, but I mean, most of them do have high impact plastic, Brandon. I mean, most of them absolutely have that. I mean, I think 99% of them are all high impact plastic right now. So, yeah. So, like I said, not as important for the adults, but certainly the 15-year-olds and less. Yeah. Very important to have that NOxy stamp on their protector.
Yeah, sure.
I sure would like to know which one is the best protection for an umpire, the Wilson or the Douglas one.
Any high impact plastic is going to help you out. Is this Jacob?
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Jacob. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, any high impact plastic is going to do the trick on that. And that's where you got to get to know your catcher too. I mean, introduce yourself to that catcher at the beginning of the game. Yeah, make him your friend right now. Okay. Talk to him. I mean, really, he'll protect you. And so, like I said, it just depends what you prefer. But the Douglas thing, the Wilson, the power protector. I mean, there's a variety.
So Jay, the one that
real quick, Brandon, real quick, out of respect for everyone's time, let's kind of get through the presentation, and then we can always ask questions at the end.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm good too.
Okay, sounds good. So this just kind of reiterates the chest and body protector rule 1-5-3. You can read that in the rule book. It's right there. So you just read this, and I mean it's all pretty basic. And the rationale is we've already talked about that. We talked about the commotio cordis situation, and so I just wanted to explain that a little bit more. Like I said, it's a Latin term for lethal disruption of the heart muscle. it the impact actually freezes the heart. It stops it immediately. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so the compliance of player equipment. So a face mask guard specifically designed for a particular helmet model can be attached after manufacture, provided that the procedure is approved by the manufacturer and meets the SEI NOC standard at the time of manufacture. So what we're looking for on that is we're hoping that some of the players don't approach their managers and say, listen, I'm in a woodworking shop. I can screw these things on myself. Hey, tell them not to do that. That's going to be a courtroom situation in a hurry, and that's going to be a legal shitstorm. I guarantee you. So just make sure that the manufacturer who makes these things is very specific about how to attach these things, because if you do it at home and it falls apart and somebody's face comes apart, somebody's going to end up in court and you're going to lose. So just keep in mind, let's not put these things together in our basements, and let's not screw them in with cheapo screws. Make sure you go to the manufacturer instructions. They will usually tell you very specifically about how to attach these things. Okay. Okay, so we're working with proper pitching positions right now. So
excuse me, can I ask something about the face shields?
Yeah, sure.
As an umpire, how are we to know that that one was designed for that mask and so on?
Yeah,
Just because I've seen some bad ones in youth.
Right. Well, so we're not the manufacturers. Remember, we're the umpires out there. And we've also asked both skippers at the beginning of the game, is everybody legally equipped? Okay. So that's going to cover us. That verbal discussion is going to cover us. And don't look for stuff, but I mean, if you see a cheesy one, if you see it's loose and he's just moving his hand, it's loose, you might want to take a look at it. I mean, if it's you can't obviously we're going to err on the side of safety. And if you see a loose one out there, obviously, I would take it out of the game, no doubt about it. That's what I would do. And I would suggest any umpire do that too. But like I said, the manufacturers are going to have some data in their manufacturer list that comes with this face guard, and they're going to show you exactly how to attach those things. So like I said, we're not the manufacturer. Keep that in mind. But like I said, if you do see a loose one, inspect it by all means, but and take it out of the game if you have to. But like I said, we don't want them loose. We don't want them screwed in in a kind of an unprofessional, amateurish way. So and they're basically obviously to protect the face, left side of the face for the righty and the other way around for the lefty. But so let's move on to the proper pitching position. So the windup, obviously they've included this in the points of emphasis. So obviously this is being butchered again. So let's keep in mind that the windup position is one of two legal pitching positions. So for the windup, the pitcher's non-pivot foot should be in any position on or behind a line extending through the front edge of the pitcher's plate. And the set, and you can read this, it's one of two legal pitching positions. For the set position, a pitcher shall stand with his entire non-pivot foot in front of a line extending through the front edge of the pitcher's plate, with his pivot foot in contact with or directly in front of and parallel to the pitcher's plate. So these are legal pitching positions here, and we're going to obviously hop into the hybrid here real soon. So we're going to get into that here in just a few seconds here. All right, so on this, we're going to allow this. A lot of times there's a divot in front of the pitcher's plates. They're not well tended. I mean, some of the some schools have these massive holes in front of the pitcher's plate, and so to avoid the inconsistency with the pitcher, we're allowing them to set up on the corner here. So you see his pivot foot on the corner of the pitcher's plate. That's perfectly fine. Non-pivot foot is exactly where the photo says, and that's going to be a legal situation. So don't get too technical with this. Don't automatically call time and say illegal pitch or balk or whatever, because this is perfectly legal, and it's just to avoid It's to avoid that gigantic divot in front of the pitcher's plate that's not well tended by a particular school. All right, so here's this hybrid. And we've been working with this for a few years now. The hybrid is illegal because it doesn't conform to either the windup or the set, and that is why it is illegal. So, hey, umpires, keep it simple out there. Skipper comes out and says, "Hey, why'd you call a no pitcher a balk?" Well, because he's neither in the windup or the set position. So make sure you keep that one simple and just say those words and make the correction. I would also do a little bit of preventative umpiring out there by recognizing at the beginning of the game when they're doing their practice pitches, their warm-ups, see how they're setting up. If they're in a hybrid, you might want to remind him that he's in a hybrid and it could cause a problem down the road. So there is what you're looking for. That is what the hybrid position is, and it is illegal, by the way. So can't allow this. So like I said, preventative officiating works real well with that. Jump on him when he's at the warm at the beginning of the game. Don't let him do it for 3 innings and then suddenly start calling it because you finally recognized it. So pick that up at the beginning. Okay, so another point of emphasis is jewelry. I mean, MLB guys are wearing all kinds of high dollar, $10,000 necklaces out there, but this is not MLB. Okay, we cannot have jewelry here. Okay, these players, have heroes out there, and they're all wearing gold, and they're all wearing bracelets, and they're all wearing a bunch of things. So hey, in high school, we can't do it. It's not going to be allowed. All right, and it's a safety thing.
What about for a religious reason, though? Do we have to do it, force it because of religion, or?
Yeah, if you read on there, Brandon, we can read it together if you want. Jewelry, including necklaces, bracelets, and earrings, shall not be worn except for religious or medical medals. Okay. So a religious medal must be taped or worn under the uniform. A medical alert must be taped and may be visible. So either way, they got to be taped if they're religious or medical. But no bling, no $10,000 necklaces. Can't do it. It's just not right. It's a safety thing. A finger could get inside there and tear a finger or injure a neck. I mean, so and be familiar with the penalties on that too. Okay, so and remind the skipper at the beginning of the game. Hey, just as a reminder. We know these players' heroes are wearing all kinds of, high dollar necklaces out there, but it can't happen today. So just remind them right there. And by the way, that's not a warning. That's a reminder to the skipper. Hey, and make sure you take the jewelry out. Earrings have to come out. Nose rings have to come out. Eyebrow rings have to come out. And other things. And there are other areas of the body that are being pierced too, but we won't get into that because we don't really care too much about it because we can't see it. Okay. So, but just remind skippers at the beginning of the game, no jewelry. It's being worn all over the place still to this day. So we want to make sure we have that reminder at the beginning of the game. And make sure we don't see it during the game. And so first offense is going to be, warning, and then the next player is going to have to be ejected. Okay, guys, hey, that's it. I know I blazed through that player DH thing, but like I said, there is a link. You can have the umpires have a link. They already have it. You can go in, you can check that out. It's a little bit long, but it's very good. If I say so myself. I mean, Tom and I did it, but I mean, we really researched the crap out of that. We really did. We looked for every single scenario that could come up. And if you run that show, you're gonna have a lot of great information on there. And so do that. And I think the skippers are also, the managers out there are going to have that same link. I think it's in the chat section. And so check it out if you can fast forward through some of it, but there's lineup examples in there and a variety of other things. And there's some great information in there. So I would suggest you check that out, and umpires absolutely check that out. and be familiar with that player DH, because it's new. It's a little tiny bit confusing, especially with the subs, but basically take it slow, be flexible out there. Remember, we're educators out there. Let's not try to exploit the rule in any way, and let's just get through it. Okay, so if there are any questions, I would be glad to take them.
Jay, real quick, so about the locker room rules here this year, Dana had mentioned something about the basketball referees having to go to the games in their uniform. Is that the case for us because of the locker room restrictions?
Well, Brandon, I'll answer that, and just based off of the fact that baseball umpires usually get dressed from the trunk of their vehicle, I don't think it's going to be any different for baseball umpires. Basketball is a different sport, but since we are in the baseball clinic, that would be a recommendation. If you can show up dressed, that'd be great.
Okay, because I was just going to show up dressed because I don't have a car.
Your partners will take care of you.
Okay.
And we always have, Brandon. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We have. We've done great.
All right. Okay. Sounds good.
We got you, Brandon. We got you, buddy.
Thank you.
We'll get you to those games, Brandon.
Okay.
So hey, this no spitting thing, I think that's going to take about a season to get over that. Spitting is it happens every 3.2 seconds out there, and so that's going to be kind of a tough one. But like I said, it's brand new. I mean, it's a really tough season coming up. We got a lot of things to think about out there, and hey, I think just a bunch of reminders out there. Don't get too over officious out there with that. I mean, hey, somebody spits, remind the coach, hey, listen, can we minimize that, please, if you don't mind? Just go at them like that. I mean, just don't watch a wad come out of somebody's mouth, and before it hits the ground, you're ejecting them. I mean, come on, let's not do that. I mean, let's just
what exactly do we do if somebody actually does spit?
Brandon, you and I can have a conversation about that tomorrow. Can we do that?
Yeah, sounds good. What time do you want to call me tomorrow?
Yeah, I can definitely do that for you.
Okay, thank you. I'll see you all later.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I think we're pretty much. I know it's kind of late, guys. Sorry about that, but if there are any other questions, I'm glad to take them. But I think we're pretty much done. And hey, like I said, have a great season out there, umpires, coaches, managers, everybody. I mean, it's going to be kind of unique out there. It's going to be a learning curve for everybody. It's going to be a lot different, but it's going to be safe. And the NMAA is erring on the side of safety on that. The governor's erring on the side of safety. No matter how you hang politically, hey, it's all about safety. This thing is nasty. It's killed millions of people. And so we want to continue to be extremely safe out there. And so that's what all these safety protocols are all about. And the NMAA is all over it. So just deal with it. Have a great season, and we'll see y'all in about a week and a half on the yard.
All right.
Jay, thank you very much to our coaches and umpires. Really appreciate you spending a couple hours here tonight with us. As we keep saying, we know this year is going to be different, and it's not going to be easy, but I definitely appreciate all of you. We're finally back to the diamond, and I'm extremely excited about that. I know we went over a lot of information tonight. If you have any questions, need any additional guidance, information, shoot me an email, give me a call. Like I said, I will also follow up with an email within the next day or two that has more links and this presentation and any document that I can pass on that will help guide you through this year. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Like the bottom right of the screen, maybe there should be something that says end meeting or something. Or I can just go over there.
Oh, sure.